people find themselves within in the modern context.
Hmm. So you're interested in mostly the philosophical critique of materialism that he
Yeah,
provides, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so basically, just to kind of sum that up, so for Guinan, I need to kind of preface his critique with a couple things here so people kind of understand where he's coming from. Guinan is heavily influenced by Neoplatonism, Plato, Aristotle, in particular Aristotle's hylomorphism.
Hmm.
Basically, the idea of hylomorphism, for those who aren't familiar, is that substance is the product of form and matter. Now, Guinan actually kind of like he switches up the language, so it becomes confusing uh, if you read Aristotle and then read him, because he talks about substance as not matter, but just sort of pure potentiality. And pure potentiality, I put that in quotes because that actually can't exist for him because you need actuality as well. Um, and so for him, the world is bifurcated into two poles of existence: the essential pole and the substantial pole. Uh, which is also known as the pole of being, that's proper to the essential pole, and the pole of becoming, which is proper to the substantial pole. And being imposes itself on becoming, and then that can also be understood as essence imposing itself on substance, or actuality imposing itself on potentiality.
Hmm.
And through this, you sort of have, the world the manifestation was what he calls it, because he's heavily influenced by that Platonic language and also Hindu metaphysics too. Through this sort of imposition of actuality onto potentiality, you create distinction in the world. And now distinction in the world, um, it can't be reduced down to matter, or but even matter itself, even the ontology of matter, being a distinct sort of substance, right,
Hmm.
or distinct ontology or object, has its own essence,
Hmm.
and this essence, right? Well, this just shows that matter itself can't be the fundamental sort of uh, basis of reality, because it presupposes a higher kind of level of existence, which is that of essence.
Just to cut you
Um,
off real quick, that sort of reminds me of that video I made on distinction and why materialism can't account for distinction. Because if what materialism says is that only matter is real, you would have to find something material that is distinction. Like,
yeah,
and the same goes for all universals and everything transcendental immaterial, or what we commonly experience as material. If you cannot find matter that is distinction, then you're dogmatically presupposing distinction, which is immaterial, and then claiming that to be materialism. So it's an inconsistent form. I think Guénon's basically saying the exact same thing here.
yeah, exactly. The actual category of distinction, as a universal category, like that cannot be reduced down to matter. And even if you try and again, like even if you try and reduce it down to matter, matter itself is a distinct ontology.
Hmm.
So it already presupposes the reality of distinction. He actually has
Right.
in his book, in the first chapter of his book, The Reign of Quantity and the Signs of the Times, he talks about he talks about you know the ancients didn't actually see, like even the ancient materialists or whatever, um, they didn't actually see matter in the same way we do, because we had this idea of matter being in a constant state of motion, but that's actually derived from an older idea of um, pure potentiality, pure like primordial chaos, which is what he calls substance. So substance kind of epistemologically turned into this notion of matter, I guess, in Renaissance philosophy and Enlightenment philosophy, but it's completely, he says, a totally um, deformed idea. He actually even rejects in another book he wrote called this is actually my favorite book by Guinan, is the metaphysical principles of the infinitesimal calculus. He talks about he rejects the notions of atoms, not in like that there can't be um, smaller units of reality, but he rejects the notion of atoms being indivisible, because for him, what he calls extension, which I guess he kind of takes from Descartes, um, this extension, or rather, something with a surface area or any area, any sort of I guess you could say shape to it.
Yeah.
Um, anything that has a geometric nature, logically speaking, it can be reduced and infinitely, or
Hmm.
to use his language,
It's like
indefinitely
it's just
divided.
Zeno's paradox, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he cites that at the end of that book as well. So that's also, he kind of has like this. His metaphysics actually kind of play a lot into like the rest of his social critiques that you can see later on in his book, The Reign of Quantity.
Yeah. So would you